So first of all, thanks everybody for taking the time to spend with us, and hopefully let me know that you can see my screen. You should see the agenda up there now. You can all see that. Wonderful. So yeah, thanks for taking the time to spend with us. So basically, this is a follow-on from the session that we did last week. So if anybody has come to that one again, great. Welcome back. For folks that are new, we'll do a quick recap. So we're going to really spend today talking about how to use Copilot Studio to drive additional usage and adoption within your environment. So we're going to do a quick recap on what are agents, just to make sure we level set. We're going to show you a different way of using Agent Builder. We talked about templates last week. We're going to talk about some of the built-in capabilities this week. Then I'm going to hand over to Rima, who's going to do a quick intro to Copilot Studio. We're going to really kind of talk to you about how to use one of our Copilot Studio templates called Know My Customer. This is something that's come up time and time again with the customer engagements that Rima and I do. And we thought it'd be useful to be able to share that with other customers so they can build it for themselves and then customize it to their heart's content. We will then sort of start with driving agent adoption, and we'll talk a little about next steps and call to action. So as by way of intro, my name is Mr. Hewett. I'm a principal product manager within Microsoft. I tend to spend my team works across Europe helping customers to build agents, whether they are in Copilot Studio, Agent Builder, Visual Studio Code. And by doing that, we generate a load of very powerful feedback, give that back to engineering, and basically help to produce a better product for us all. Rima, did you want to do a quick intro?
My name is Rima Reyes. I'm also principal product manager, and ditto to what everything Lester said. I do the same thing. We're on the same team, so.
Thanks, Rima. So yeah, Rima's going to take us through the exciting stuff of Copilot Studio. I'm just going to do a bit of quick level set and do a quick demo of using Agent Builder. So let's just do the quick level set on introduction to Copilot agents. And really kind of we see as part of the work that we do with customers, we really see customers effectively kind of using a range of different types of agents. We have some customers that are on the end of building really autonomous agents, so they're triggered by incoming emails, or maybe they're triggered by things happening within ServiceNow, and they're processing them and basically doing all sorts of wonderful things with that. We have other customers who are looking more at kind of the retrieval end of this. So maybe they have a bunch of standard operating procedures held within SharePoint, and what they're looking to do is, how do I get simple, quick answers to, how do I process this invoice, or how do I make a change to this customer record? And then we have people looking at task-based agents, basically, where they're doing things for them. So folks are giving the agents a set of tasks, they're processing them and giving them the answer back. So, really agents have this ability to wrap kind of AI together with a set of instructions and capabilities to deliver tasks for you. So for some examples, we might start up in the simpler end with maybe a help desk agent. So maybe you've got a knowledge base somewhere, maybe you've got a kind of external system that has all of your knowledge articles in it. So you might decide to connect an agent up via a Copilot connector. And then people can be asking that, hey, how do I connect to the corporate network? How do I change my password? How do I order a laptop? That kind of stuff. And then we might end up where we get more into the kind of, we take that to the next level as an example, maybe we're going to bolt some tasks into that. So rather than just being told how I order a new laptop, maybe it's a good idea to actually now be able to go and order one for me. So it can give me the choices that I'm looking for. I can talk about it, talk about my role, have it suggest something that might be a good thing for me to use, and then effectively go and send that through the approvals team to actually get it picked up. And then we might end up with something a bit more advanced, maybe that's in the sales pay area where, you're having new products that are being generated. So as those new products are generated, maybe an agent wakes up, realizes a new product set, looks through your customer database and starts to identify new sales leads for you to follow up in a more automated fashion. So when you turn up on Monday morning, you've got some new materials to read, you've got some new customers to talk to, and off you go. And then you could use other agents basically to help you. If there's any customer questions, maybe you've got a support agent that's helping you on those new product sets as well. So it's really a continuum of agents and capabilities, really starting from this idea of, I've got a set of data holding SharePoint, I now want to basically get that out and start to work with that, all the way through to I'm triggering a bunch of activities that are taking place based on a change in status setup. So if we think about the bones of an agent, no matter what the agent you're trying to build, fundamentally they all hang together at this level. So the bottom of the pile is the foundational models. And of course, as Microsoft, we give customers the choice of those models they want to use. On top of that model, there's an orchestrator. This is the thing that's basically planning and executing your actions. that, the foundational model and the orchestrator don't do an awful lot on their own. So they need knowledge. They need to understand, what am I going to basically be using to be able to answer the questions? And with that knowledge could be it could be graph knowledge, it could be M365 knowledge, it could be knowledge from external systems. And then when we start getting into more of the kind of task autonomous world, then we're looking at triggers. What is it that tells the agent when it should fire up? Then we're looking at actions. What are those external systems or internal systems and capabilities that your agent can do? So maybe you're wanting it to write a summary of one of your new customers and then have that uploaded into a SharePoint site somewhere, or you want it uploaded directly into your CRM. That's the kind of thing an action can do for you. And finally, the workflow instructions, they're really what tells the orchestrator and the agent how it's supposed to behave. So you set things like its tone, its capabilities, its skills within the workflow instructions, and that's driving the orchestrator to make use of the knowledge, the triggers, and the action. So just a very quick kind of view of the things that hold this together. If you've got any questions, please pop them into chat, and Rima and I will try and answer them as we go through. So we think about agent creation. I mean, one of the things that we do is we provide different venues for creating agents dependent on the types of people who are creating them. So I'm going to talk about Agent Builder. This is very much for end users to build agents for themselves and for their teams, basically. And it's a great way of using some of the built-in capabilities grounded on M365 data and really get you some high-quality agents that can help you with your questions. Rima's going to talk you through Copilot Studio, where maybe we're looking more of the maker persona, someone who's decided that they're willing to kind of like spend a bit more time understanding how to build something, they're willing to go to that next technical level, and they've got some more capability, more flexibility, and more powerful tools to work with. And then finally, for developers, we've obviously got the option to use things like Visual Studio Code and some of the other capabilities like Copilot Studio and Azure Foundry. As we look at our customer engagements, really, on a general week, we may be working across any of these with customers, depending on the scenario they're trying to execute and depending on the skill set and their level of comfort. So I would definitely say there's a journey through this from kind of no code to pro code, and it's a great place to start using things like Agent Builder. So I'm going to quickly talk you through that. And here we'll be thinking about using agents as a quick sort of level set. Obviously, people that have never used an agent before, great to go into the store, go to the catalog, pick one of the pre-built ones like researcher, analyst, prompt coach, learning coach, meeting coach. They're all there to help you work through. And then apart from that, you can build some agents from templates or from scratch. And then if you have an agent that already exists somewhere else in the environment, there you will be reasonable kind of ship it in support for things like A2A and some of those capabilities. You can bring those agents into Copilot as well. So, it's a whole load of great ways of basically picking and deciding how you want to get started with this. It says on the bottom here, it kind of says beginner down to Agent Pro. I think it's more honestly down to the scenario that you're trying to execute. And, looking at the kind of what grounding do you need? What functions are you looking for? What capabilities do you need? And then making a decision on which one of these could be a good starting point for you. I would always think about our templates and the materials we create as they're as good examples of how you can take this further yourself. And Rima, thanks for sharing in some of the information related to, where you can think about some of this stuff and find some of this. Cool. Okay, so let's have a quick talk about Agent Builder. So Agent Builder effectively is within the M365 Copilot experience. It's on the left-hand rail where you've got agents, you can click it. And what this does basically is it can actually build agents from your workflow, from your conversations, and it's grounding those agents within the data that you have access to. So if you've got an M365 Copilot license, it will connect to your emails, to your chats, to your meetings. So you could say to it, hey, I want you to go and look at, my current email and my current chat meetings. What have I got to my day? And one of the agents that we talked through last week was a really useful one we've created called Plan My Day. And Plan My Day does exactly that. It basically looks through my calendar, my teams, and my SharePoint information, and then comes up with the things that I should be considering and thinking about during that day. So it's a nice way of building some of that. It's actually kind of, as I said, part of M365 Copilot, and it's got some really nifty capabilities where either you can build agents from templates or you can build them directly from scratch. So it's a cool thing, basically. It's got a nice sort of first run experience, and it does support natural language creation that we continue to invest in to really help you build exciting agent. So I'm going to show you that for a second. So I'm just going to stop sharing for a second, make sure I've got the right screen, and I'll be with you in just 2 ticks. So here we go into Agent Builder itself. Make sure that's the right one. Yeah, it looks like it is basically. And here basically, so this is, like I said, this is within my M365 Copilot environment. So I can see I can have new chat, I've got agents, and I've got some of the ones that I've pinned, research and analyst, so I want to use those to help. So I can go into my new agents, basically, I can go to here and I can create a new agent. And from generating that new agent, basically, I can ask it, so maybe I want it to help me build a team morale agent to help drive connected teams in. So you can get, pretty, pretty complex in what you're asking this to do. And what it's going to do, basically, it's going to look through what you're asking to do. It's going to create a draft, and it's going to work on building this for you. So rather than, it'll take a minute or so to do, it's fairly quick. I'm going to flip to Intriguingly Peter style. So for those people in the UK will know what I mean, to one that I started earlier on. So you can see here, I gave it a little bit more of an in-detailed prompt. So basically, and it's telling me that it drafted my team morale coach, which is really nice. It wrote focused guidance. And basically here I can look, and it's given me a great description of what it's doing. It's given me a set of instructions. So it's given me a guidance style, be upbeat, supportive, and organized, which is great. And it's basically given me some, asking, say, hey, if something's missing, please give me some reasonable assumptions and try and work forward from there. And you can see it's got some guidance style inside it. It's got core skills, and it's got some step-by-step support to give it basically, if I, asking it specific questions, it's going to give you those in great detail. So you can see some little double dots in here. Little double dots really are helping with the formatting from a Markdown perspective. So the nice thing about this is that we go from you coming up with an idea for an agent. One of the other things it will do is if it looks at your idea and it works out that there are capabilities you need to execute that are outside of Agent Builder, it will tell you as well. So it's pretty good at kind of nudging you in the right direction for what it wants to do. It'll kind of give you some suggestions on knowledge. Maybe I want to add all of my SharePoint and Teams to that. Maybe I just want to add some web knowledge. And then here I can tell you whether or not it wants to create documents. And down the bottom, it will give me basically some suggested prompts. So I can look through this. I can edit as much as I like. It's fine if you want to edit it and then you find it's not quite what you want. Basically, you've still got your original prompt. You can recreate it and do that. So once you're ready to play around with it, you can say, I'd like to preview. And here I say, well, let's have a 15-minute morale booster. And it'll go away basically and generate me an exercise with a hybrid team, basically, that's just finished a stressful project. So again, you can see I've gone from coming up with an idea to having a pretty detailed agent with starter prompts, with instructions, with data in a matter of minutes. So it's the kind of thing that, if you're looking to drive usage of Copilot with your user base, running a couple of quick sessions to explain to people how this works and what they can get from it is a super useful way of doing that. And once you're finished with this, obviously one of the things we can do is we can create our agent, and then once it's created, I can then share it with my team and my buddies to get them working from that point of view. So yes, just wanted to give you a quick demo. So you can see it's quite nice. It's using a bunch of emojis and icons, basically. It's given me a very specific kind of minute-by-minute plan, so I know exactly what I'm going to be doing to run the event. So we're looking forward to that. Okay, so we're going to swap back now, and we're going to change pace a little bit, and we're going to talk a little bit around the Copilot Studio. So I'll present back again if that's all right with you, Rima, and you tell me how you'd like me to drive it forward. If you've got any questions on Agent Builder, we kind of rattled through that just as a bit of a kind of level set. Again, the last session we ran, I think Darren has very kindly produced the link, goes into a load more detail on Agent Builder, and also we'll talk in more detail about the templates. Rima, over to you.
I'm actually putting in the chat right now some information about Markdown, which people might find interesting, because I know when you were going through Agent Builder and the instructions, you were talking about the 2 stars, right? And so that's really important no matter where you go. So even in Copilot Studio, if you're writing instructions there, you want to understand Markdown a little bit. It's not a scary coding language, trust me. There's not too much to it. The biggest things you really want to know is the double star and the hashtag. symbols to understand like order of operations or like level of like where instructions are being followed for the agent. So anyways, all right, next slide. Let's go to Copilot Studio and all the fun here. So Copilot Studio provides a little bit more when it comes to building agents. So with Copilot Studio, you can actually add third-party connectors. You have a little bit more control over autonomous triggers. You can also be very specific about how the user interacts with the agent and how the agent can respond. So it gives you a little bit more control, power, and also options in terms of how the agent experience is for the user and also for building it. You have additional features like, being able to perform eval sets, although that's also coming to Agent Builder here soon. But and then you have with Copilot Studio, you can actually publish it into different mediums or places. So let's say you want to publish it to like a Slack channel or Teams, Copilot, you can absolutely do that too. But there's a bunch of different services that you can actually publish your agents that you build in Copilot Studio. So Copilot Studio really gives you a little bit more flexibility in terms of how you build and what you build within your agent. And it allows you to incorporate a bunch of different options too. So again, you can also bring in other agents like Foundry agents. You can connect Foundry agents into it. You can have a parent and child relationship with agents, build a multi-agent solution also in Copilot Studio. So again, super flexible. There's a lot going on there. Some people find it sometimes daunting. We promise it's not. Once you start building, getting your hands on in Copilot Studio, you'll start getting kind of a feel for it. And it's very similar to how you build agents, from a first part from Agent Builder. But again, how much control and flexibility you have of integrating it with other parts of your business or other parts of the software that your company actually has is really, really amazing and really awesome. So that's why whenever we have ServiceNow agents or things like that, folks are usually going into Copilot Studio just because of the level of automation and integration as well. Let's go to the next slide. Yeah, so you can build and deploy agents very, very quickly within Copilot Studio because it is a UI. I am not a developer by trade, so if folks are on this call, my apologies. I don't dev. I can read code, but building code is not my forte. So Copilot Studio gives you that WYSIWYG, like what you see is what you get. It is a website, it is a UX, a UI that you can go into and actually build an agent. So it is our one ecosystem of how we connect everything within Microsoft and also third-party products into a single agent platform. So you can easily access existing backend systems that you have. Again, so if you've got, let's say, Jira or Confluence set up where you're doing some software development or project management that way, you could absolutely connect that as well. Other data systems, so such as Databricks, you can include Snowflake, things like that. You can incorporate all of that data as well into your agent. And so you are able to bring content that you have within your organization, even though it's not Microsoft, within your agent itself. And you also get the ability to bring your folks together when you're building agents. You can actually co-edit agents together within Copilot Studio, which is a huge benefit and boon for folks who maybe want to build certain parts of an agent. Maybe they don't want to build the whole thing. You can actually share your agent inside of Copilot Studio and actually work together on it. You can quickly develop your agent and deploy it at scale, meaning that you can essentially deploy your agent into multiple surface areas, like I said before. But you can also have a staged rollout. So let's say you want to be sure that you're testing your agent first, and then you want to essentially deploy it into a pre-prod environment before it goes into prod. You can also perform staged rollouts as well in Copilot Studio. So it gives you more of that flexibility around, hey, we want to make sure this agent is right before we have a mass rollout to everywhere. And you can also, whenever you build an agent inside of Copilot Studio, you can also share it with the entire org, right? Obviously, you're going to have admin approval to do that, but you can absolutely do that from the Copilot Studio interface. And then finally, when you're building your agent, it's very similar to how Agent Builder looks on the screen, where you can add knowledge, you can write your instructions, things like that. The first interface within Copilot Studio makes it super familiar to say, hey, if you've been an Agent Builder, great. You have a very similar experience of getting started within Copilot Studio. So again, we try to make things as consistent as possible, regardless of where you're at, but you can easily define your instructions, add your own models if you like. That's another flexible option in there too. You can add tools, actions, triggers. You can have your agent autonomously start on its own if you would like. I love those kinds of agents because I tend to not remember a lot of things. I'm getting older. Like I forget a lot of things. So having an agent go run when something occurs is super helpful for me, because then that way I don't have to actually do it myself every single time. And so those are really kind of the high level benefits. And there's a lot to Copilot Studio. Again, if you've got questions in the chat, feel free to ask us. We're happy to help. So let's go to the next slide. Great. Yes. Okay. So we're going to do the demo. So we wanted to talk about a very special agent. Actually, Lester's team built Know My Customer. And this agent is really specifically about, let's say I'm doing research on a customer and I want to understand a lot more about competitive insights, or, you know, what the market is telling me about that customer. There's a bunch of different suggested prompts in this agent you'll see, but essentially this is a custom agent. We have this as part of our catalog. So if you go to aka.ms/HPA catalog, you'll be able to see all of the agents in here. We have 10 agents so far. The first 8 are the declarative agents that are actually in Agent Builder as templates, so you don't need to download them here. But the last 2 are custom agents, and I'm actually going to share my screen, Lester, if that's okay, and take over here.
Yep.
Perfect. Let me do that. All right, let me know if people can see the screen, hopefully. Good, we're good, okay. So if you go to aka.ms/HPA catalog, like I had mentioned before, if you scroll down to the bottom, there's actually 2 agents. It says custom agent right here, and Know My Customer is the last one. And this is the entire agent package you would need. We have the agent package itself is the custom solution that you would import into Copilot Studio. But we highly recommend to download all the files because you're going to need everything to do this. So what's super important is a setup guide, and then obviously also the word template that you're going to use within this agent when you set it up. We also do provide an overview slide deck. So let's say you want to convince your IT manager to deploy this agent, or that you should have access to be able to import this agent. Definitely go take a look at the overview slide deck. That'll give you some more value and ROI specific to this agent. We also have an evaluation test plan where you can go and run your own tests just to show, hey, like, this agent does what it says it does. And so that really kind of helps build trust and insight into folks that are using the agent. So I've already downloaded all the files, but again, we recommend going here, downloading all the files. It'll give you a zip file of everything. And when you download all the files, see if I can show what it looks like here. You're going to extract the zip and you're going to essentially import the solution into Copilot Studio. So I have a video that I actually recorded. It was late last night, early this morning, that shows how all this works. So I'm going to have that run here. Let me make sure I've got sound also enabled here. I hope that works. Let's see. So I'm going to hit play and let me know if you can hear the sound.
This is Know My Customer, a Copilot Studio agent that researches any company and builds a Word report. From the home page, I open the More menu and choose Solutions. On the Solutions page, I click Import Solution and upload the agent's package. Copilot Studio confirms it's the Know My Customer solution from PowerCow. After import, one essential step remains. The report flow still points to the author's storage, so I open the file generation flow to repoint. In the Populate a Word template action, I set the location to OneDrive for Business, the document library to OneDrive, and pick my own copy of the template. The fields remap automatically and I save. A newly imported flow comes and turned off, so from its details page, I switch it on. Now the fun part. I open the Know My Customer agent and ask it to create a competitive intelligence report for Salesforce. The agent first builds a research plan, laying out 6 sections it will investigate. Then it works through each one, pulling from across the web, definitions, competitor moves, pricing, product launches, and financial performance. Every section is researched and written, including the impact on Salesforce itself. With the research complete, it hands off to the file generation flow, where a one-time allow prompt grants the Word and OneDrive connections. And there's the result, a finished report for Salesforce, saved to OneDrive with a download link.
All right. I wanted to make sure I recorded the video just because there's a few steps in there, and I'm happy. We're happy to put the video inside the slide deck so that if folks really need it as like a how-to guide, we absolutely can. Something to note, just when you import the file, it's going to take like a little bit to import. We kind of fast forwarded through that here, but when you import, just give it a few minutes to fully import into the solutions area within Copilot Studio, just because again, it takes a little bit. And so, Lester, I don't know if we have time for more of a demo, or do we want to move on? Maybe we can do more of a demo at the end.
No, I think we've got time if you want to do more of a demo now. We're
Okay,
kind
great.
of another kind of 10, 15 minutes. We've only really got the kind of adoption stuff to do afterwards. So yeah, grab some more demo away.
All right, let me, and I'm sorry, I know folks are seeing me like look towards the side here. I have a very large monitor screen, so I wanted to, I have my laptop open on this side, so I wanted to make sure that folks are. All right, so let me share here the window. All right. So there we go. So folks can see here, this is the agent, you know, fully deployed. At the bottom here, we've got some suggested prompts. So again, feel free, you know, if you want to edit them, you can. We took a lot of time in terms of figuring out like what prompts work best for this agent. But whenever you're testing inside of here, just doing a quick test before you even do evals, you know, feel free to, you know, copy one of these prompts here and use it in here. I can say, I'm going to go to a customer here. We'll just say Bamboo Lab. That's the company of the 3D printer that I own. So we'll have it do some research here. And so what you can see as soon as it dives into the agent, into that prompt and that flow, you'll see within here, it actually shows you a description of what's occurring. It'll tell you, here are the inputs that the agent is actually parsing through. It'll help you understand what are the instructions for how to compile the information. It gives you additional instructions here and what the research prompt is. And sometimes, you know, if you're really interested as to like what's happening behind the scenes, if you click on the show rationale, it'll give you a little bit more detail as to what's going on, especially if something goes wrong. I love clicking on show rationale just to understand a bit more about what's happening behind the scenes. So once this is done, I want to make sure I open the Word doc so y'all can see that too, because I think that's important. So what happens here is it goes and does the research for you. It stores that information, populates that into a Word doc. That Word doc gets generated inside of OneDrive for you, which is really cool. Again, like I don't have time to write Word docs. Who does? This agent does it for you, which is great. So as soon as it's done, you're going to see a link to where it was generated in OneDrive. And so then I'll open that up and so folks can actually see that live. It takes a few minutes. Lester, is there anything else that we wanted to talk about regarding like Copilot Studio? Anything else that maybe I might have missed in terms of features or features that you like in Copilot Studio?
Yeah, I think the evals is one that we should probably talk about as well. So the evals is kind of a really powerful way of making sure that your agent is doing what you want it to do. So just to be interesting to see. So we kind of shipped evals as part of Copilot Studio some months ago now. And what that allows you to do basically is to effectively kind of test your agent out with a set of prompts and a set of expected answers. One of the things that we would definitely suggest people do is as they're starting to build agents in Copilot Studio, as you're starting to think about the first functionality of your agent, maybe it's a good idea to start thinking about the actual first set of evals you might like to go with that. So, you know, it's not a bad idea to start the way that Rima just started, that in the evals evaluation section, once you've built your agent, you can actually go in there and you can ask Copilot Studio to build you 10 questions based off the knowledge and the topics and the information that you have in your agent to the quick question set. And what that's doing is if we use that and we use the kind of general quality classifier, it's just getting a kind of rough feel for how your agent's behaving and what it's doing. And then generally, if people want to get more you know, in depth in this, one of the things you can start to do is create your own questions, and you not only put in a question, but you'd also put your expected response in there as well. So that's a cool thing to look at, is basically, if I'm going to ask the agent about A, B, and C, what's my expected response? And then when you run it, basically it'll fire the agent up. You have to give it a user account so it knows which user to use. But basically it'll run through and it'll test your agent out against your questions and your expected responses. This is especially useful if you're going to start making changes to an agent. Maybe you're adding in new topics or you're modifying the instructions and you want to find out, have I made it any better? Have I impacted something before I go and publish it to my users? So I can have a consistent set of evals for that agent. And as I make changes, I can rerun the evals and I can get to see basically if I have made things hopefully better and hopefully not worse. So it can be a bit daunting at times, sometimes, because there's a lot of different options inside here. But the recommendation we have, like I said, is maybe just start with 2 or 3 evals. So you start thinking about what's called a golden eval, which is, let's just confirm that some basic functionality is working the way it's working. Then when you build an agent, you would typically be thinking about the types of things it's not supposed to be answering. So maybe you put some boundary condition evals in there and say, well, if I ask it about, can it book me a trip to Mars? It probably says, no, I'm a travel agent, but I can't do that. So, you want it to basically decline doing that type of activity. If it's a financial agent you're building, you probably don't want it answering questions about healthcare. So the boundary evals can help you make sure that your agent is effectively staying within the boundaries that you set it. And then you can have some compliance evals in there that kind of say, hey, I need to get a purchase order for $500,000. What do I do with that? And it should know that $500,000 has to go to a certain set of approvers. So you can kind of put those types of evals in, and maybe they're just 5 or 6 evals just to get yourself going. And then as you start to build more capabilities, you can drive those in. So yeah, it's a nice way of being able to build. Effectively, what you're doing is you're building in trust for your agent as you go through. And one of the nice things that Rima is showing you now is that when we built these agents, basically, we built a bunch of evaluation test sets ourselves, and you can download those. Basically, then you can bring them in to the tool and effectively have it automatically generate those results for you. So yeah, I definitely say that evals are something that are super useful. Be interesting to see if anybody can kind of do some thumbs up or go into the chat, how many people are using evals today. There's some great materials that are available online, but honestly, the best way of doing this is to go in there, maybe use the starter component of just generate me 10 sets of prompts or questions. And then one of the things you can do if you want to be a bit more advanced is once the things actually run, you can actually export the test results. They appear in Excel, and then you can modify the responses if they aren't quite what you expect, and then re-import them again as a set of new evals, and then you can get them going from the back. So they're quite nice from that. So the other thing that you can get them, there are single step and multi-turn evals. So I think someone in the audience, Matt, just asked, you can basically add multi-step evals, but you kind of need to put what you expect to happen at each step along the way for those to work. But they definitely are a nice way that works through it. And there's, there's kind of, you can also run those over APIs as well if you want to. Some of our customers are doing that. But effectively, for a builder, it's a really useful tool to try and pull those 2-3 things together. I hope that's useful.
That's amazing. Thank you, Lester. I'm going to go back to our response here. So here we have all the information. It went and performed the research. As you can see, it's quite extensive here. There's quite a bit of research that it's done, and it also calls out the references as well in here. And so that's super key. So I'm going to go see where my document is here. Let me go over to OneDrive. And it should be in here, if I'm not mistaken, unless something went wrong and I didn't do it correctly. I think it did. I think something didn't go right this time around. Let's see. All right. I don't know why it's not generating. I did this at like 5:30 this morning. Of course, the one time we're on a video. Let me do another test prompt here. Let's go and we'll just do this one. Who are top competitors? Done that one for sure before. So there we go. All right. So let me go over here. I know I deployed this into 2 environments. Maybe something's going on with this environment. This is the default. By the way, just as like a note, I know I'm doing something bad here. In general, we don't recommend publishing agents into the default environment. I know I did that for here for showing purposes, but just as an FYI, I know personally I haven't had that much luck whenever I deploy into default, so that's probably why that's going on. But essentially, you all have seen what the agent looks like. You saw that in the video. That video was real. It was recorded again at like 5:30 this morning, so it definitely was real for sure.
Yeah.
So
I was thinking, what are you doing up at this time? I'm recording a video. No, can I help? So yeah,
you know,
crazy days basically.
Yeah.
Good.
Here, I'll stop. I'll run this, and then if we want to answer questions, and then I can pop the screen back up whenever we're done. We can go through adoption because I know we're
okay. Well, I'll grab the presentation back, and then we can go from there.
Yeah.
Excellent. Right. So just to give people an idea, when we talked about the kind of test prompts, basically the kind of evals. So these are effectively we include these in the download. So if you go to aka.ms/HPA catalog, effectively, and then you can download the materials from My Customer, and you've got a bunch of test scenarios and prompts. These are things that we tested it against as we wrote it in the first place. So please feel free to use those and get yourself a feeling for that. So we've done a demo, which is fantastic. And then, I guess if you think about adoption planning with this, one of the things that Rima said, obviously, is once you've completed your agent, you have the ability to submit this to your M365 admin. And one of the things that's probably a good idea is maybe you target the 100 users. So maybe you've got a kind of security group that has those users in it already, and you could submit that to your admin. They can basically take the zip file or take the submission directly from Copilot Studio. And effectively, they can then either deploy this or publish it to those 100 users. If they deploy it to the 100 users, then the agent is ready and waiting for them in their left-hand rail. If they publish it, it's available for them to pull from the store. So, for a pilot, something new, it's not a bad idea to actually deploy the agent so it's ready and waiting for them to use. Typically, when they run the agent the first time, they'll have to do a couple of connections to connect to their OneDrive for a place to put the documents. But the other thing that's quite nice, in the set of materials we provide, there's also an overview deck. And quite a few of our customers take those and they customize them and they use them basically for adoption material. So they'll send them out to maybe send that same 100 users an email out of what we're doing. Maybe they'll have a form. Some people will have a Teams channel with a loop in it, basically, and that way they can be answering any questions. And it really drives that kind of usage as it goes through. So that just gives you a view of where we are from adoption planning and the materials. Like I said, the place where we go to get all this goodness is the aka.ms/HPA catalog. And in there, you find the overview deck for each one of these, whether they're a template or whether they're a solution. You'll get a setup install guide. If anybody wants to really find out how do we build it, what were the step-by-step instructions. So, if you say, hey, I love the solution, but kind of real people eat Marmite, so I'm going to go and build it myself step by step. You can also do that basically, and which is a great way of learning and following the instructions rather than just import the solution and fire it up. The solution way is great if you just want to get going. If you want to learn more, then do it from there. Okay, cool.
One thing, Lester, I wanted to say about the adoption, also when people deploy agents within Copilot Studio, they will start seeing analytics and metrics, right? There'll be a panel, so you can actually see how people are using it and whether, if they give thumbs up, thumbs down, right? You can see some interaction and understand where things failed potentially for people. So that'll also help you improve your agent over time if you like. So
yeah, great one. And it's something the maker can see. They don't have to go to the admin to look at, basically, especially if you can see the results from that. Okay, so we're going to hand it back to Darian now.
Hi, everybody. So yeah, thanks, Lester, Rima. Everybody, please, if you don't mind, please take a second to give us some really quick feedback. There's really only 2 questions on there that we need your help with. And so the other part is if there are any questions before we have about 15 minutes left. So and we have our speakers here. So if you have any questions or thoughts, please fire away.
I just pasted a screenshot of the report it generates if folks are interested.
Nice.
So, yeah. I can show here. Let me just share my screen really quick so y'all can see this. So again, you can change the pink if you don't like the pink. I know some people have feelings about the pink, but I like the pink. but essentially provides you an executive summary, gives you market context here. And what's really cool is that it actually builds tables on the fly and inserts information into the tables as fields. And you'll see, like, when you look at the agent flow within the agent, you'll see how the fields are actually mapped to say like what information goes where. That's where it's mapping to. It's actually mapping to these what are they called again? I forgot, like the little placeholders, but they're like context placeholders within the Word document. And it knows to say, okay, like, I have generated this information, I store it in this variable, and now I'm going to go put it exactly here in the Word doc, which is really cool. And then if you scroll down, it has like some key moves. So again, Bamboo Lab is a 3D printing company. And so it talks about here are the competitors, and like, what move types the competitors are performing and what's happened and why it matters. It also gives you some tailwinds and some headwinds, just really quick. But again, it's a 3-page report, at least for the prompt that I put in last, which is really nice to have with competitive research. So, and then all that lives inside of my OneDrive. So here you'll see, like, there's all the reports that you generate. Again, it's all in here, and you can define that in the agent flow too. Like, if you want to have it in a specific folder, you don't have it to have it in your OneDrive root. You can also store them in SharePoint if you like as well. So let's say you're going to deploy this to an entire team, and the entire team is doing competitive research, and you want to store the files there. You can absolutely configure your agent flow and point it to a SharePoint location instead. So that should be fine. All right. Any other questions about this one?
There's a question in chat there, Rima, about the file that integrates with the file. I mean, that is the template that the agent completes. That's the file that we're putting in there. So, like Rima said, if you want to change the color scheme or you want to rearrange it slightly, then you can do that. The interesting bit there is obviously looking at the instructions to look at effectively the variables that we create. And you can do the same thing with a declarative agent and agent builder as well. So you can give it a Word template. You can put a bunch of variables in there, curly bracket, call it whatever you like, and effectively then you can get it to say, right, well, the customer scenario or the competitor name, you need to put it in here. So effectively it gets the ability to, you're giving the agent a helping hand. So the better you describe the template instructions, and the better that you basically provide the template with at least some replacement variables. And as we said, the other thing you can do with it for those templates is make it very descriptive, put some notes in there so the actual agent can read the template and work out of the data that you provided, what is it you should be going to do. So yeah, lots of good stuff inside there.
Yeah. So this is the agent flow. And so right now, what you can see is, like, when the agent calls the flow, it actually brings in information from the agent directly into the flow to go trigger it. And then what's running is something called a runner prompt. I don't know if folks are familiar with this. This is actually my #1 use feature in any agent I build in Copilot Studio and any flow I build. And I know that sounds, you're probably like, Rima, that's a very charged statement. It is, but it's true. So runner prompt is part of AI Hub, which is part of Power Platform. I'll go hit edit here so you'll see what this looks like. But it allows you to describe in natural language what you want to do, like what you want that agent to perform within that step. And so right here, it extracts from a variable called content, provides the executive summary, like get it headwinds, detailed paragraph, right? File, it also defines the file name here. Like, this is very simple, but it does quite a bit with runner prompt. And runner prompt, again, allows you to almost provide like a subset of instructions for the agent to perform a specific task, which is really nice. And so then that information, when you get the output from this, from runner prompt, it actually then makes sure to feed that into the Word template here. And so when you see these little like icons right here, that's what that means. And so that's actually filling in a lot of the information. It's basically generating the variables that's going to fill in into Word. And so when you add the Word doc template, and this is for any Word doc template, it will see the variables, the context variables that you've defined inside of the Word document, and it'll actually show up here. It'll automatically like show up on this node within your agent flow, and then you'll be able to map the variables of like what you've defined before into the Word template. And so that's how you bring content directly into the Word template, is really through those content variables. I will try to find an article that talks about how to create your own Word template and your own to be able to like map that into an agent flow. That's something that's very common that we get asked a lot to do. A lot of customers have very specific templates. Like, think of contracts, right? And you have only specific places that you need to edit within a contract. You don't need to edit the whole thing. That's a really good use case for this type of scenario. So anyway, so whenever it finishes building out the Word template, and then it goes and creates the file in OneDrive. Again, you can remap this to go create the file in SharePoint instead. It goes and creates a share link, and then that's what gets sent back to the agent as a response. Yes, Lolitha? Question?
Hey, hi. I mean, whenever I see agent flows these days, customers have questions about workflows, right? The new one that we introduced. Do we have anything to talk about that? I'm sorry, I'm from Fast Track team. I'm asking this question because I see my customers also join this call.
Okay.
So yeah.
Great. Are you talking about the workflows agent in M365 Copilot, that one?
Copilot Studio.
Oh, in Copilot Studio. Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Maybe that's something that I'm not aware of. Maybe Lester, do you know what she's referencing?
We can talk about.
Yeah, maybe you could ping us offline and then we can see.
Yeah, ping us offline.
Sure.
Yeah. I'm not sure exactly, but yeah. Okay. I think somebody else had a question too. I think somebody briefly raised their hand here. Yes, Nell, do you want to go for it?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, quick thing, like if I create any agent, right, in the agent builder, because that will become my personal agent, right? So, and I can publish to the store if I want. And how I can see the adoption, or like if I want to know like how many tokens I'm using, like what is the cost, of the token of that particular agent. Is there a way as an end user I can see somewhere, or it's only for the admins in the agent 365 or somewhere, other people can see,
So
admins.
at the moment, there isn't a way for someone who builds an agent in Agent Builder to see any of the kind of usage statistics. Unfortunately, it's a customer ask that we have heard and have passed on a few times. And obviously, the admin has some agent usage reporting that they can look at from their side. So that gives you a kind of idea of the usage and what the agents are doing and where they're going. But from a maker perspective, generally, you're not going to see that in Agent Builder. It's really designed for folks who are building an agent for themselves, or they're building an agent basically for their small teams, and where people want to build agents for whole departments, where some of these cost usage is important, and they're probably doing that maybe more in things like Copilot Studio or Visual Studio Code.
Thank you. And in this agent builder, I can choose my own model, right? The model choice is available, correct?
Agent Builder, not so much. If you want to choose models, that's more where you go to Copilot Studio.
Okay, thank you.
Jeremy?
Yeah. Thanks again for doing this presentation again. I was just wondering if you all will be doing any presentations on AI Foundry.
That's a Darian question.
Yeah, it's likely in the future we'll do something related to that. What I'm curious, what is there a specific like use case or problem or hurdle that you're looking at? Like
Thanks. Is just right. So building agents in AI Foundry, and also doing multi-step work of where an email comes in from a customer asking where they say, I need this with a quote, basically in a text, and then using AI Foundry to create an invoice based on emails.
Okay, so like complex use cases, like you're saying, which obviously if you're using AI Foundry, you probably would be doing something complex. Sorry, what were you saying?
I was going to say, I think you can do that in Copilot Studio, to be honest. I mean, an autonomous agent in Copilot Studio can be connected up to a shared mailbox. You can have a trigger that when a new mail comes in from that mailbox, you can pull the mail out. You can use the worker queue MCP servers to get access to the body and the attachments or whatever's been added to that mail. And then you can use some of the AI capabilities to kind of process it. And as Rima just showed you, we have the ability to generate documents. And then I guess, I don't know if we can send them back out again. That's a whole lot of discussion. And maybe you don't necessarily, maybe you want a human in the loop to go and do that, to check it before it goes out. But I would say that, if you're comfortable with Copilot Studio, I would definitely start there. Not saying you can't do it in Azure AI Foundry, but I think you've got more of the kind of pieces to hand that you've got in Copilot Studio maybe to build something like that.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I'll try that out. Thanks.
Yeah, just check out autonomous agents and email triggers. That's probably a good starting point to look at from there.
Actually, I have a quick follow-up question. I'm curious. So what I'm not sure who that was that asked that question. What made you think that the AI Foundry was the needed tool for that?
Oh, for me, I guess just because I assumed that AI Foundry, I just assumed you can do more with AI Foundry than Copilot Studio, and that it's, you know, more pro code. Is what I was assuming.
I think a lot of it comes down to obviously, I mean, with AI Foundry, you've got a very wide selection of models you can use. So, you know, depending on what you're trying to do, you might find that there's actually a pre-trained model that's very specifically around invoices in financial services. So using something like that to help build your capabilities might make a certain amount of sense. I know that you know, Copilot Studio can also make use of a number of those models as well. And I guess it also depends, you know, in Copilot Studio, you're kind of working with environments. You've got things like application lifecycle management. When you're working in Foundry, you're kind of more things with kind of CI/CD. So a lot of it depends in many ways on what your development preference is. You know, if it's a pro code shop, then maybe doing things in Foundry makes more sense. If you've got a bunch of makers who are doing things and they're pretty competent in what they're up to, then effectively Copilot Studio makes sense. So it's not only the kind of the capability of the platform, it's also, I guess, you know, meeting you where you are developing today and your governance and other kind of other areas, how you might decide whether Copilot Studio or Foundry or, you know, VS Code is the right place for you to be developing. And I think if you go and look at the actual UI in Azure AI Foundry today, it's not 100% different. You know, if you know how to do things in Copilot Studio, it doesn't take a huge amount of kind of scratching your head for a little bit to work how to do it in Azure AI Foundry. There's quite similar experiences. Because, you know, if you think about it, boil it all the way down, like we showed you the picture of the anatomy of an agent, you know, it's a foundational model, it's an orchestrator, it's a set of knowledge, it's some workflow. How do I go do what I want to do? It's got some boundary conditions in it, and then you've got some triggers and some actions. So whichever way you kind of bundle them up, that's still going to be the guts that build an agent, whether you build it in Agent Builder, Notepad, Visual Studio Code, or Foundry.
Okay, thanks. So just maybe another quick follow-up question is, for all of us to learn more in Copilot Studio, like in what you're saying here, do you think that so build and manage agent flows and workflows, and then add MCP servers? I mean that would be a good part. Microsoft Learn.
Yeah, but there's also I can't remember what it's called now.
AI Learning Advisor.
Yeah, there's that. There's
Okay.
that. Yeah, do you want to talk about that? I was going to also say the kind of the Copilot camp as well, because there's also quite a lot of stuff in there.
Which also AI Learning Advisor references Copilot Dev Camp actually as well.
But then you go with AI Learning Advisor, and I'll put the link into Copilot Dev Camp.
So we built this agent. It's an agent template, so you can go to new agent and actually select the template. I've already deployed it because I know we're almost out of time, but AI Learning Advisor allows you to create, it's really focused on Power Platform too, and it has also references to Copilot Dev Camp, so it'll actually give you the recommended dev path from Copilot Dev Camp if you like as well. And so it basically looks through all of Microsoft Learn and gives you, you know, custom learning plans. It gives you references. It also, again, suggests things that you can do in Copilot Dev Camp hands-on. Before we end, I know Matt has a question. Matt, did you want to ask your question?
Not sure you'll be able to put it in. It's about knowledge retrieval agents. So really simple concept. I've been playing around with a few lately, and users have quite high expectations around how long it takes to respond. And when you have over that 25, I think the 25 limit, it will search through knowledge sources and to reason over. So say we have 50 documents, 50 sets of policy agent, 50 documents, and the user wants it to answer really quickly, less than 10 seconds on those 50 documents. I've really struggled with Copilot Studio to get it to do this. And there's not much in the way of feedback from Copilot Studio as to where it's slow or what it's struggling with. So I was wondering if you had any kind of best practices, if we are with Copilot Studio, on getting it to reliably retrieve from that number of documents.
Yeah, where are you storing these documents, and what type are they?
They're PDFs.
Okay.
and they're stored in SharePoint.
Well, all in one SharePoint library.
I've tried both, so they are all in one library, but because there's other things in there, when you go to add them and then you add a filter and then it adds them each as one SharePoint link. And then I've tried copying them all into another SharePoint library and pointing it to that whole library.
Yeah.
Which does seem to be slightly better. I'm not quite sure.
I mean, the other thing you could also do is to consider, where things like Work IQ come into this as well. So you're kind of there, you're kind of handing back more to the kind of Copilot engine to go and do the work and retrieve. So that may be something else if you're finding some capabilities. But I mean, normally if you have all the, I mean, how many other files are inside that repository that have got these PDF files in it? You said you had one that just had the PDF files in it.
So when there's one with just the PDF files, there's only the 50 odd files. With the other one, when you go to add them, you add the filter and it adds a link to each. So there are hundreds in the whole SharePoint.
Yeah.
But I think it's only linking to the PDFs.
Yeah,
not grounding in the whole site.
How long are you saying it's take to give the user an answer?
About 25 seconds.
I mean, I guess there is one way to look at it. If they had to go and read all 50 documents themselves, how long would it have taken them to do it? I mean, there is a certain point. I mean, I guess the other thing I would do as a benchmark is if you've got all those things in a SharePoint folder, I would just create an agent builder agent and just try it there. Because if all it's doing is it's doing RAG over a bunch of standard operating procedures, I would probably use Agent Builder for that. At least as a compare contrast.
Yeah.
Then you
the reason Studio is for the billing, really, for non-license holders.
Okay. I mean, still, I would try it in Agent Builder just to see what the difference in speed is. If it is fundamentally different. If not, the only other thing can be what DRM you've got on those documents, if any. That also is potentially an interesting one from there. Anyway, good luck with that.
Thank you.
Let us know how you get on. And thank you, everybody, for the time and the questions. It makes it far more exciting when you've got things that make us really think, which we will do, which is great. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and good luck for the various people following football this evening.